You saw how we can draw circles and ellipses with the arc function, but the HTML5 canvas also has another function called arcTo, which can draw arcs, but it's generally used for doing things like rounding corners. So I'm going to show an example of how to do that and kind of how it works. So we're going to draw a rectangle, but we're not going to use the simple fill rect to do it. We're actually going to use multiple arcTo statements. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I need to begin a path, because we're going to be drawing multiple rounded corners, and we need to basically connect the paths, connect the dots, if you will, between those. So I'm going to start off by saying let's move to a specific position. Now you can imagine moving your paintbrush, if you will, up on the canvas, and I'm going to move it over to 80 pixels and 50 on the Y. And so that kind of gets us ready to start drawing. Now from here we can draw the top right corner. So to do that, we're going to do the arcTo. Now what I'm going to do is go from 80, 50 over to 210, 50. So we're going to go ahead and put that in, and that'll move us over to the right. But then I want to go down from 210, 50 down to 210, 70. So we're going to go down a little bit, but we want to round it by 20. So this represents the start x and y, this represents the end x and y, and this represents the radius. How much do we want to round it? If I really want to go big, I could do 80 for instance, but we're going to do 20 here. Now if we come down at this point and do a context.stroke, this will stroke it with black since I have it set otherwise, and let's go ahead and try to run this and see what we get. And you'll see that we now have gone from 80-20 over to 210, right around in here, but we're going to round between this point and this ending point, and that's why we get this nice little rounding of 20 right here. So our 210 will be right around here. We're at 210.50, and here we're at 210.70. So instead of drawing a straight line over, which it would do, by the way, if I were to just come in and put 0 as an example. Let's go ahead and run that. And you'll see that we just get a straight line, but we want to go down to 70 here, but it's going to round between those points. So we'll go ahead and put 20 back. All right, so that's our top right. Now we need to go down to our bottom right. So we're going to do the same exact thing, arcTo, and we're going to do 210, 200. So we're going to stay on the same X, but we're going to jump all the way down from 70 down to 200 now. And we're going to go over to 160, 200, and round by 20. Now, I could change this one up a little bit, but this will work. So let's go ahead and run it. And you'll notice that we now drew from our 70 point down to 200, but we round it with 20, and then over to 160 here. We were at 210, so we're actually over in here, this area. Now we'll go ahead and do our bottom left. And for the bottom left, we're going to go over to 60. We want to stay at the same level on the Y that we were, 200. Now we want to start going up a little bit. So we're going to do 180 and also round that. Save it and run it, and now we should see we kind of have our up arc going. So we've kind of connected all these points. And then finally we can draw up to our 80-20 area, but we're going to need to be a little bit left of that so that we can round it and connect it in. So we'll do our top left, and we'll do an arcTo. Now I'm going to start at 60 because that's where we were here to leave off. We're going to go to 50 and then 150 and 20. And what that's going to do is kind of swing out to the left of where we started and then end 20 pixels over to the right of where we started. We're going to end at 100, but we started at 80. And there we go. So we now have a nice little rounded rectangle looking type of shape. Pretty easy to do. The challenge, of course, is you got to play with these points to get them right. But we started here. We drew over to here, but then said end the second point of this first curve here, rounded by 20. Then we went from here and drew basically from here to here and rounded that. We drew from here to here, rounded that, and then we, of course, basically drew from here to here and rounded that. So it's one of those things you'll generally have to play with without an actual drawing tool to use. Now if we wanted to come in and fill this, we could certainly do that. We could add for instance, a fill style. Let's say navy, and then we'll do a fill. And that'll fill in this path that connects all these dots together. Let's go ahead and run that. We'll now get navy, and our stroke's not real thick, but we could certainly change that. In fact, just to make it a little more obvious, let's go ahead and set the stroke style to red and run that. And there we go. You can see we have a nice little red border. We could definitely change the line width if we wanted as well, but we'll leave it at that. So that's an example of using the arcTo to actually render a rounded rectangle type of shape.